28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested in North.
Bryan Kohberger is
For Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of.
Bryan Kohberger, of course, is awaiting a preliminary hearing.
Currently, Bryan Kohberger served at Bryan Kohberger's car.
How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick, if I could. He's right up on that van, man.
The 18-page affidavit now released from authorities shows what led investigators to arrest Bryan Kohberger.
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cheryl. This is True Crime and Other Stuff. Thanks for being here. My goal is to bring you well-informed information and discussions on topics like true crime, the missing, current events, or anything I find interesting or important. Today, I want to talk about Bryan Kohberger and some of the evidence that's been coming out.
Like a wake-up call in my head. Holy crap, dude, like we all knew this before the rest of the world basically did. Like how and why, and I don't know. I have no idea.
Will kill 4 people at night and not wake up the other 2 roommates.
Our investigation will continue to look at all avenues of that investigation. I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know that information at this point in time, and that's why we're continuing to investigate.
Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but we're not just focusing just on them. We're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation?
No, it was not.
To call 911. Why did the killer spare the life of Kaylee Gonzalez's dog? And perhaps most important, why were the lives of 2 roommates spared?
Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were all found stabbed to death in their off-campus home on November 13th of last year. And just moments ago, Kohberger, here you see him entering the courtroom, and moments ago he stood silent when the judge asked if he wanted to enter a plea. So the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf in the deaths of those 4 University of Idaho students.
Now, the defense asked the court to set that trial date beginning October 2nd, though Kohberger did not waive his right to a speedy trial. The defense says they'll expect that trial to take 4 to 6 weeks. The clock now starts for the state, too. They have 60 days to decide if they plan to seek the death penalty.
Roommates survived the stabbing attack inside this house last November that left 4 other students dead. Bethany Funk was one of the survivors, and now she's agreeing to be interviewed by the defense in the murder case. Attorneys for the suspect Bryan Kohberger issuing a subpoena for Funk to testify. Kohberger's legal team claiming Funk has exculpatory information that might help to exonerate him.
This is the police body camera video captured on November 13th, 2022, as Moscow, Idaho police responded to a 911 call.
Yep, where's she at? Where's she at?
Yes. Moscow Police Department, you're in here, announce yourselves.
But nothing would prepare police or this tight-knit community for the shocking murders that they discover in this house on King Road.
A murder mystery in Idaho.
Hi, okay. So this next segment, they're talking about how they think the killings were sexually motivated.
Was able to stab all these 4 individuals so many times, fighting back Xana. I mean, stabbing her 67 times. It takes a tremendous amount of exertion to do this. I mean, I'm still having trouble processing how he was able to do this, right? How he was able to attack in this way. And obviously, certain victims had no idea this was coming out. And then you had Xana, who was fighting back. Just talk to me about what this tells you about the timeline of this.
Okay, so this is kind of how I've worked it out in my mind to a certain degree. I believe that this was sexually motivated. I think that, and you don't have to have a rape or an actual assault to have a sexually motivated event, okay? And when we talk about that, it can be jealousy driven, this sort of thing. And plus, many psychologists hold that knives are very phallic, all right? I'll just be very blunt about that. If you're going to choose to kill somebody over and over and over again, stabbing, that sort of thing, draw your own conclusions on that. So initially, this case started out with the 2 young women upstairs, perhaps thinking the perpetrator thought that this was a single event. He's got an adrenaline dump going on relative to being fired up sexually to attack in that environment or perhaps do other harm. But when he walks in and there are 2 people occupying that space, it goes from that initial adrenaline dump and that kind of sexual motivation to an individual that is now being driven by probably anger and fear. Now, after this has been perpetrated, he goes downstairs and poor Xana. You know, she's alerted to this and she makes contact with him perhaps on the staircase. Again, another adrenaline dump. Now you've got fear because she perhaps is blocking his ability to exfil out of this place and he's been seen. Okay, so now this descends into a level of savagery, Jesse, with Xana that I don't think that either you or I initially imagined. Right. Because if you think there were a lot of stab wounds upstairs with the 2 young women at there, we come to Xana at this point in time, and she is just riddled with 60 plus insults all over her body, Jesse.
And Joseph, about Ethan, there's not enough talk about Ethan. What happened to him?
Well, you know, out of all of the injuries that were sustained in this home, he had the fewest. But Jesse, we have to understand that Ethan actually sustained stab wounds to his chest. He's got stab wounds not just in his neck where his jugular vein has been compromised, but also his subclave, which is this major artery that goes beneath the clavicle here. It's a major blood supply. So this was clipped. His chest has filled up with blood. He's also, and the most bizarre thing I think about Ethan is that Jesse, he's got these odd incised wounds and stab wounds. Incised means cut to his lower extremities. And I've never been able to make sense out of that. I don't understand that. And I don't know that all of the explaining in the world could make sense of it. And that might remain a mystery. But that's kind of the outlier here. You know, why would his lower extremities, his legs, essentially be attacked? Super bizarre.
And let me just say this, you know, every criminal defendant has a right to defense. But let me tell you, this guy, just what, days before, he was about to put the finger on other people, about to blame somebody else for what he savagely did. And I just, it's so hard to grasp. And I appreciate you coming on, Joseph, to make sense of what is truly a senseless act of violence against these 4 innocent individuals. Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. Take care.
Okay, that was News Nation. If you want to watch the whole thing, go to News Nation. I just wanted to watch the small part where they were talking about how the injuries and how he thought it was sexually motivated. Okay, so we're going to watch this next one.
In Bryan Kohberger's case may be giving us a clue as to why prosecutors were eager to make a deal with the accused murderer. Kohberger's team planned to argue a major piece of evidence was planted. Could it have created reasonable doubt? We'll discuss. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Being online is just part of life, but seeing how much personal information is on the web, a scalp and 25 wounds to her upper extremities, meaning her arms, along with other fatal wounds to the heart and jugular vein. Her blood alcohol concentration was 0.229, and she had amphetamine in her system. Xana's boyfriend, Ethan, also had amphetamine in his system. His blood alcohol level was 0.122. He also suffered stab wounds to his head and scalp, and one to his upper chest, and several on his legs. Ethan also suffered a fatal wound to the jugular vein. Now, I share this information with you so you can understand what this jury was going to hear from prosecutors at trial and what Kohberger's defense was going to present. It may have turned into a battle of the experts. The defense was going to call expert Dr. Brent Turvey to offer his expert opinion on a number of things related to the crime scene. And given my coverage of this case, some of his opinions are kind of surprising to me, while others are not, given what we know about the defense's claims. First up, Dr. Turvey was going to testify that the bodies of Maddie and Kaylee were posed, since he said that Kaylee's body appeared to have moved, and so did Maddie's left leg. But the state planned to call Paulette Sutton, an expert, to rebut Turvey's testimony. Sutton planned to testify that posing would be an intentional act and possible, but it wouldn't be the only explanation for why their bodies could have moved. Now, one thing Kohberger's defense repeatedly pointed to was a lack of blood found in his white Hyundai Elantra and his apartment. CSIs took apart that white Elantra and didn't find one speck of blood belonging to the victims in that vehicle. The prosecution said Kohberger's background in criminology equipped him with the know-how to keep from contaminating a crime scene and how to clean up afterward. Paulette Sutton planned to testify the significance of the lack of secondary transfer in a vehicle purportedly used when leaving the scene must take into consideration what is applicable to the particular scene in question. One must consider first that there was a limited amount of secondary transfer within the scene itself, which is attributable to someone other than Mogan, Gonsalves, Kernodle, or Chapin. An assailant can easily remove protective clothing and shoe covers or place unstained coverings over stained clothing or shoes before they contact their vehicle or residence. Cleaning or wiping off excess blood before making contact with secondary surfaces is also possible. Now, it's terrible to talk about, but there was blood from Kaylee and Maddie found dripped around the house, and Ethan too. This photo shows the handrail going from the third floor where Kaylee and Maddie's bedrooms were located to the second floor. The report says that there were blood transfer stains on the handrail and they tested positive for Maddie's DNA. There are other blood stains going down those stairs and on the wall. They are marked stain K and stain J in the reports. In the living room on the half wall, above the stairs leading to the front door, the report says that there is a transfer stain of blood belonging to Ethan Chapin. The report notes there's no evidence that Ethan was ever out of Xana's bedroom after he was stabbed. On the same half wall near the beer pong table, the report says there are cast-off blood stains, with Kaylee being the major DNA contributor and Maddie being a minor contributor. Cast-off, the report notes, happens when blood is released from a bloody object being in motion. Kohberger's lawyers plan to call Dr. Turvey to testify that there was no way that one person could have carried out the murders in such a short span of time, about 12 minutes. Dr. Turvey said 2 assailants likely carried out these murders. Dr. Turvey wrote, "It is not reasonable to think that Ethan would have remained in his bed after waking up or being awake while Xana was being attacked in front of him. This evidence and context begin to suggest the existence of a second attacker." Turvey continued, "At least 2 suspects were involved in this attack. This is indicated by the fact that multiple weapons were used against Kaylee, that multiple types of lethal force were used against Kaylee, and that Ethan and Xana appear to have been attacked at the same time. This is inconsistent with the state's theory that these crimes were committed solely by one individual." Paulette Sutton commented in response, There is evidence that Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were in close proximity to each other at some point after the assault began, as evidenced by the finding of Kernodle's blood and DNA under the fingernails of Ethan Chapin's right hand, and the finding of Chapin's blood and DNA under the fingernails of both Xana Kernodle's hands. One assailant could contain two people in close proximity to each other, especially if the assailant is armed. A single perpetrator can certainly use more than one weapon and can use multiple types of lethal force. Now to the knife sheath, the major piece of evidence that connected Bryan Kohberger with his...
Wow, that's some crazy stuff, huh? I really would have liked to seen the trial. I think that it would have been pretty interesting, but in a way, I'm glad that it's over and the families didn't have to go through all that bullshit. Okay, let's listen to some more.
His DNA on the leather strap to the crime scene. That sheath was found partially under Maddie Mogan's leg and her comforter. Well, Dr. Turvey was going to testify for the defense that the sheath, in his opinion, was planted. Turvey reports that the knife sheath was staged for the following reasons. Crime scene staging refers to an attempt to confuse or misdirect a law enforcement investigation by altering, fabricating, or planting evidence in relation to a crime scene. In the present case, a K-bar knife sheath was discovered in the crime scene by law enforcement. Evidence of staging with respect to this item of evidence is as follows. The sheath was found precariously placed just slightly under the body of Madison Mogan and partially covered by the comforter that was placed atop the midsection of her body by the suspects. It could not have fallen accidentally into this location. The state had Paulette Sutton ready to testify to the contrary. The sheath.
What do you think about that? Do you think the knife sheath was planted? Or do you, I don't know, what do you think? I really wish we could have saw all this play out in court. It would have been very interesting.
Sheath could have become trapped under Madison Mogan's body when she moved her left leg out of the bed. If she were hurriedly moving her left leg, she would not have taken time to move the comforter, in which case the sheath would be trapped between the comforter and the bed. So to really dig into this idea of staging of the sheath at the crime scene that Dr. Brent Turvey was going to testify to, had there been a trial, I want to bring in Dr. Laura Petler. She is a criminologist and actually studied Brent Turvey's work.
Okay, let's take a look at another video. That was Anjanette Levy. You could go check her out if you'd like. This is...
that he treated women a certain way compared to men. Disrespect. He just had an odd, strange behavior.
IDAHO
The university was on to him. Professors said, we need to cut funding from this guy. If we give him a PhD, he's going to become a professor, and we're going to end up seeing on the news that he's stalking women or he's committing some kind of crime.
He received an email describing that he was on a performance improvement plan with the university in this role. It was somewhat satisfactory, but there were some problems.
WSU did not intend to have him back as a teaching assistant.
He was starting to really lose control of his life, kind of spinning out.
Away from home, isolated. Kohberger is about to turn his PhD work into reality. He goes from a student to a killer.
Is it somebody that trains and practices over and over and over and over again, and then at some point do they feel like they have to execute?
Like a sick way of carrying out his thesis.
Right.
Okay, that was 2020. If you want to check that out, you could go ahead over to 2020, check that out. But that's all I have for today, and I am looking into the photos, and I'm not sure if I really want to post those or not. So I'm thinking about it. All right. So everybody have a good one. Thanks. Peace.
Thank you for watching.